So,
I have no expectations and nothing to say.
right. Well, let's get started then. That'll be fun.
You're hanging out in the House of Sunny podcast, where it's always sunny, mostly because of your host, comedian and YouTuber, Sunny Lohman. Want to know what Sunny and her friends are thinking about this week? Well, here she is, Sunny Lohman.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the House of Sunny podcast. We are back at it here with Doug. Happy Inauguration Day. And screw me. Screw you, too. We got a lot to talk about because we haven't really talked about all the shenanigans. The last show that you and I recorded was the morning of the Capitol. It was the January 6th, the morning of the the Patriot insurgency.
Right.
I'm laughing, but people died. The invasion of our country by the crazy QAnon conservatives. You know, all those Tea Partiers on steroids. And we were talking as it was happening, like right when it started. So we didn't even really comment on it. And I had to take that show down because there were things said in there that could get me in trouble. So I took it down. And then I actually did get a lot of feedback on that show behind the scenes. People are like, are you saying, so I think we need to address what I want to talk about, Doug, especially with you, because you're in deep dive mode on the postmodernists on your podcast, which if you want to say, what is it and where can people find it? Let's do that quickly.
So I have the Rat Cap podcast. You can find it on iTunes or just go to my website at theratcap.com.
Yeah. And so what Doug is doing is he's kind of divided up American history into four eras. Mm-hmm. And kind of philosophically as well as sort of politically what was going on in the country. It's super interesting. One thing I've also followed James Lindsay, who's that guy who's written a lot about postmodernism too. Follow him, you guys, read his stuff. He's really super. Actually, one of the best interviews recently is him on the Epoch Times American Thought Leaders with Jan, whatever the heck his name is. Jan Jekielek. Dude is what is he, Danish or something? What kind of name is that? Anyway, great show. He looks like Eurotrash with his little pocket square. Only Eurotrash wear pocket squares and suits like that.
Horrifying.
We haven't even seen his shoes. I bet his shoes are
he's got white shoes.
Total white guy.
He's got a white belt and like big square shoes. Plaid.
The Eurotrash uniform, the white belt and the white leather shoes.
Brutal. No, but he's great. That's a great interview with James Lindsay.
It is a great interview with James Lindsay. So one of the things that James Lindsay brought up in that interview, which I think would be helpful for us to go over is, because you're also talking about it, is what they're calling this, I'm going to actually have to, I don't want to say it wrong. Just give me a second. The paradox of tolerance. And this is a Marcuse thing, but people are ascribing it to Karl Popper or something like that. But anyway, we'll go over that because I think there is confusion on, in America of when do you not tolerate intolerance? Like, is it okay to punch a Nazi? We've talked about this many times on the show before, just kind of off the cuff. I think getting more philosophical about it would be interesting.
That's exactly what my last podcast was about.
Yeah, so you'll have tons to say, and I think you went deeper than we'll go because I'm just not that way.
Oh yeah,
I'm more of a
deep diver, baby.
I'm more like Trump.
You're just a superficial vehicle.
I'm just.
You're a popularizer.
Yeah, I'm. That's right. I know my role.
No, there's art in being able to take complex topics and make them accessible. which is
I'm an
what
artist.
I try to
I
do,
think of
but
myself.
you're really good at that. So
Oh, thank you.
try
Okay,
to be
so
nice.
we'll do that, and then I've got some predictions, some Biden administration predictions, which
Oh,
I'm going to
boy.
make, and these seem super obvious to me. I make a lot of predictions all the time, like duh, but then I find out that people actually didn't see this stuff coming, and I must have a special instinct for like what will happen. Do you guys remember there was this? I think it was Electric Company. There was this little cartoon where this girl like scared the cat and then the cat knocked over the vase and like that disturbed something else. And this chain of events went on and it was all about understanding the consequences of your actions.
Give the mouse a cookie.
That's my special skill.
Remember that?
Yes, I
Give that children's
remember
book.
that. I'm freaking reading that book every month in this house. Are you kidding? I still have a little kid. So we'll get into some predictions. And then I really want to talk about what do we do as can I say the word Patriots? Am I allowed to say that?
You
Still?
slow down.
Patriots.
Okay. Gotcha. I'm a dumb Trump supporter, so it takes me a while.
Do you think that got past the censors? I don't know. Actually, if you
The
say that
FBI's
word,
here.
I was just going to say that is a trigger for the FBI to start monitoring me if I haven't already given them cause for that. So we're just going to get into like, what the heck do we do? Like, we just suffered a pretty big defeat, y'all. I would say big defeat. But like George Washington, we don't give up. Okay.
Right.
So we're going to talk about that. So let's start out with this Karl Popper thing, which isn't really Karl Popper, but I'm going to share the screen here because I have it up on this is an infographic. Hang on, I got to share the sound too. Okay. The paradox of intolerance. Should a tolerant society tolerate intolerance? Now, this is the left's argument. This is what the left uses to justify like Antifa. This is Antifa's justification. And then you see people on the right, and then we see the left also saying, hey, people on the right, you're not allowed to be violent. You're being a hypocrite. You're against violence, but now you're doing violence in the Capitol. Like, what are you saying? What are you for? When is violence right? When is it wrong? We're just talking about that on a high philosophic level right now. Okay, so paradox of intolerance. This is the left's argument. This infographic was viral this past week or the week before. Should a tolerant society tolerate intolerance? And then the other guy says, if you want more tolerance, respect my ideas. And the answer is no. So we shouldn't tolerate intolerance. It's a paradox, but unlimited tolerance can lead to the extinction of tolerance. So in order to save free speech, we have to take down free speech is basically what they're saying. So we can't let certain people's ideas can't be allowed. When we extend tolerance to those who are openly intolerant, such as Nazis, according to this infographic, the tolerant ones end up being destroyed. Okay, so it's a good argument, right? Like if you allow, we use it too. If we allow communism to spread, it will destroy freedom. In the end, maybe. I mean, this is like what this infographic is saying. If we allow Hitler to rise, good people will be silenced because they're the ones who are the fascists. Once they get in enough power, they will silence people, which is what we're seeing. Any movement that preaches intolerance and persecution must be outside of the law. So what's interesting is they don't see this in themselves. I mean, this is the paradox, I guess. They're comfortable with this paradox that any movement that preaches intolerance and persecution must be outside of the law, except ours. Except ours is basically because we are going after intolerant ideas. As paradoxical as it may seem, defending tolerance requires to not tolerate the intolerant. So this is an argument for cancel culture. This is an argument for curtailing free speech. This is an argument for Apple throwing Parler off of their app store with no justification, Amazon shutting them down with no justification, except we really don't want these ideas out here before the inauguration, and so on. So this is what the left is saying. What is our response as people who do actually believe in free speech? And then how do we defend ourselves in the face of literally their intolerance?
Mm-hmm.
So how do we love free speech and respect it and support it while simultaneously defending ourselves from literally the ideas of totalitarianism? Doug.
Are you asking me?
I am asking you.
Well, okay. So there's a couple things that strike me about this. And one is, let's define terms. And then the second thing I want to talk about is that I know that Popper wrote this, but the real popularizer of this on the New Left is not Popper, it's Herbert Marcuse. And so I'd like you to indulge me and let's talk about that for a second.
Okay.
But the first thing I want to just say is, what is tolerance in this context? Because these terms are being thrown around and very loosely defined. There's a difference between tolerance, meaning we grant someone or recognize someone's First Amendment right to say something, no matter how objectionable it is. And so that's the sense of tolerance. I may not like what you say, but I tolerate your right to say it. Okay, so that there's a difference between tolerance and banning someone from speaking because they're so dangerous that they're going to incite violence. And there's a very specific standard that the Supreme Court has set in a precedent, I think it's a 1969 case called the imminence requirement. And so what the imminence requirement says is incitement only means if speech is intended to cause an action right now, this second. So if there's a guy like right there in front of me and I say, Sonny and the crowd, let's go beat this guy up, okay? Or let's start a riot right now. That's incitement to violence, and that's not protected speech because I am, causing a riot without allowing anyone time to think about it. So there's a vast difference between incitement and just, I could say, in other words, in my living room, you know what? I really would like to overthrow the government. And I could just
You're
say that.
You're allowed to say that.
I'm totally allowed to say that. And I should be allowed to say that.
Are you allowed to put up a flyer on a telephone pole like Antifa has been doing saying, attack the government on January 20th?
No, because now this is where we have to sort of define the terms, I think, a little bit, because, and let's approach this from the perspective of we who support freedom of speech. And we have to talk about the left totally different in the context of Herbert Marcuse and Popper, because they have a totally different view than we do. So I'm only speaking from the standpoint of someone who I completely advocate First Amendment speech, and I'm a free speech absolutist. So what I would say is anyone can say, I'd like to overthrow the government. I think that's totally protected speech. If you act to overthrow the government, and you're intending to overthrow the government, you are then committing an action and you're involved in a conspiracy. Now, if it's just like me and a buddy, and we say, boy, let's go walk around the neighborhood and hold up a flyer that says, let's overthrow the government. I don't think anyone's going to stop that. If you and I get together and say, Sonny, we just raised $5 million. I've got a bunch of hand grenades and Molotov cocktails, and on January 20th, we're going to go to the Capitol and do it. Now we're planning something. We're engaged in a conspiracy and we're plotting violence. We're plotting to overthrow the government, just like we're plotting a murder. So I can't, I could say, boy, I'd like to murder my wife. Hopefully she's not listening, but I would like to murder my wife.
I'm going to slice that, take it out of context and send it.
She would totally believe it. But if I call someone and say, hey, I want you to murder my wife, now we're plotting a murder, right? Now we're an attempted murder. So there's a big difference between action and just speech. There's also a huge difference between incitement, which is a very high bar in under constitutional law. It's a very high bar to create incitement. If even I think if I said, hey, Sonny, let's just meet at the Capitol, and I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe we'll do some stuff or whatever. That's not incitement. I mean, I have to be at the Capitol saying, come on, everybody, let's go, let's get them, then you're engaged in some sort of incitement. So this idea, in this context, I think the idea of toleration versus incitement versus free speech and what can be banned and what can't, they're like conflating all these things into one, saying, and now if someone is actively, and I have a couple standards. If someone's actively plotting to overthrow the government and they have financing support, they have an organization, and they're having meetings to like burn down police headquarters like Antifa was, to me, that is rioting. That's incitement. That is insurrection. I mean, they're engaged in an organized plot. They have an organization. They have a network. They're plotting on Facebook. They're saying, hey, go here. Hey, I got the bricks, I got this, I got that. That's totally different from me writing a book and saying, boy, it would be nice to overthrow the government. I really want to, I don't really believe in the United States, and I would like to secede or whatever. That's totally protected speech. And
how about saying,
so that's step one.
Is the following protected? Stop the steal. Or is that
absolutely
incitement?
not?
Is that
in
incitement?
fact, I just called the FBI.
Yeah,
Absolutely
I probably should
not.
have spelled that rather than said it out loud.
Now, what the left is doing here is they're making a very indirect and very pathetic argument, which is that because you think the election was stolen, and because that angers a lot of people, and because that might indirectly lead some people to get angry and then go to the Capitol and then riot, you're engaged in incitement, which is completely bullshit. That's not at all what incitement is, and that's not how the Supreme Court defines it. And I would challenge anyone to take that, even in our insane environment, I would challenge anyone to take that.
Well, and honestly, they don't believe that either. I mean, this is part of the show too that we're going to get into when we talk about what to do is know your enemy. And I can tell you right now, the enemy does not believe this. This is all BS. They don't actually think, and the only idiots, I can't tell if they're virtue signaling or they really believe it, are the people on the right who are like, oh, that Trump, he incited violence. I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? Should there have been a political rally that day? Abso-fucking-lutely. Like, why is it bad to gather your supporters to show politicians, look how many of us, and this is just a segment representing, the whole country, but look how many I'm able to bring here and go, we don't believe you. We don't believe this election was fair. That is legitimate political activism and speech right there. And Donald Trump was right to do it because everybody's so freaking gutless. Maybe, they need to see crowds of people going, we want this. We want you to fight this. And without that, they lose courage if they ever even had any. I mean, there's no way that anything would have been done without that crowd coming. So he said repeatedly, peacefully protest. There was no incitement. There was no insurrection. Well,
of course,
insurrection, whatever. There was no incitement by Trump. And then the people who actually went into the Capitol, it definitely appears very similarly. I don't know if you guys remember back in early summer, the very first riot in Minneapolis, the AutoZone was the first store to get looted. And there's a video of a black, dressed in black guy with an umbrella, like obviously not BLM, like obviously not a guy from the neighborhood, walks in, breaks the window right in front of these people who are sort of thuggy and protesting, but sort of thuggy.
But he's the
first guy who goes in the store and they follow him in. And the same thing happened at the Capitol. It's pretty clear that Antifa was there in big numbers. There's another really great interview on the Epoch Times. They interviewed this guy who's like a veteran reporter of I don't know what to call it, social unrest.
Mm-hmm.
He spent a bunch of time in Hong Kong recently, and he says it was so obvious. It was so obvious to people there, to me in particular, as someone who's seen this over and over, that this was an Antifa action. And they have arrested some Antifa people. He said this was the A+ Antifa team. And there were other Antifa people there too, but there was obviously this kind of coordinated group that very well trained in the Hong Kong tactics. He said he saw Hong Kong tactics, Hong Kong language, Hong Kong coordination from these Antifa people who he knows have been over in Hong Kong learning from the activists there. So that, if that isn't creepy, that you have this freedom movement in Hong Kong and they're really smart and they're developing all these tactics, and this really icky, fascist, nasty, anarchist, communist group just kind of tagged along to learn from them, you know? Oh, it's so gross.
So the suggestion then is that at some level, this could have been instigated or a kind of a false flag to initiate or get things going.
I mean, I don't doubt that stupid people went in there. I mean, don't go in there. Don't. But and then there were obvious examples of people who were like, I thought we could. Like, the Capitol Police were talking to the people. It seemed kind of like, yeah, it seemed, but still, stupid move. A girl got shot. I don't know why more people aren't like freaked out, shot and killed. A mother.
Yeah.
Air Force, but what the hell was she doing climbing through a broken window in a hallway anyway? I think that was really dumb. But at the same time, she didn't need to be shot. I don't know. The whole thing was really tragic. And now, of course, the left is using it as a big excuse, but they don't really believe that group of people was invading the country. And like, I love the image though of politicians. We know these politicians are bad people, literally all of them. And I love the image of them cowering in fear. I got to be honest. I want them to fear the people. They should fear the people. They should.
Mm-hmm.
That's the American way. That right there. I don't know. You know, you don't have people. We don't have rulers that should not be concerned about what we think, and we have that now. And they are the worst, most evil, corrupt people. And so, you know, I'm okay with them being scared of us.
Well, it's another reason for opposing large federal government that's far away from the people. I think the founders knew that state governments and local governments are closer to the people. They're your neighbors, literally. And so it's harder to get away with usurpations or abrogations of rights when you're next door to someone versus in some far off Washington citadel where you can pass laws with impunity.
Well, and now they've got 25,000 troops protecting them that they have purged ideologically, and they have a big wall around the Capitol. How creepy is all that? Very creepy. I hope they take it down. We'll see. They might leave it up. That's one of the predictions that we're going to talk about coming up. But I want to say though, you're saying this is our view. Our view is you get to have free speech legally, and there's this incitement bar, and obviously that hasn't been met by any of this stuff from the right. But there's also the other side. There's the legal side, and there's the cancel culture side. What do we think of that? Do we agree that it's okay to harass or intimidate an employer to fire somebody who's obviously like an Antifa person? Or, you know, should people purge communists out of the military? You know, what do we think?
Well, I'd say two things. Contextually, it's partly contextual, but let's go back to the ideology of the new left. And you have to understand this to know where they're coming from and why they're getting away with this, which is not, okay, fine with this, with Popper's argument, I get it. But the real seminal figure here was Herbert Marcuse. And what he said in the 60s in his essay, Repressive Tolerance, I'm not making that title up. I'm going to say that again. His essay was Repressive
That's not
Tolerance.
a contradiction or anything.
And what he advocated explicitly was that the right should be disproportionately censored, that what he posited was the only condition under which we can allow what he called tolerance is a condition of absolute equality where everyone is free, or not free, everyone is actually equal. And since that condition never exists because some people are more powerful than others, then the government should act to enable oppressed voices, and they should throttle the powerful. So the government should act only to enable repressed voices to speak. In other words, they should engage in censorship, and that censorship should be disproportionately applied to the right, since he's writing in the 1960s. It'd be interesting to see what he would say today, because I'm sure his whole argument would change. But at that time, he saw the right as the military industrial complex and various corporate interests that were considered right wing, and the left was on the fringes and marginalized. So he was making an argument that the right needed to be thwarted. And
and we hear this with the race stuff. Like, I hear that white people need to make space for Black people. White people should shut up to make space. It's almost like there's this pie of, of people listening, and if you don't have the right idea, or if you're on the oppressed side, you get to say something, but other people shouldn't say anything.
That's exactly the Marcusean idea.
Okay.
Now, remember, Marcuse is considered the father of the new left. He was the most, New York Times, everyone would agree that he was the most important thinker of the 1960s. His ideas were acted upon and immediately implemented. He endorsed violence against the right. He endorsed what he called pre-censorship. So he was calling not only for censorship, but pre-censorship. So don't even think about it. We're gonna.
How do you do that? How do you do that? I guess they're trying now, because if you voted for Trump, they're gonna pre-censor you. You haven't said anything wrong, but you're obviously screwed up, so you're gonna not be able to speak.
So he had this idea that capitalism was all totalizing, and that there was this cultural hegemony being created by the capitalist power structure, and there was no freedom. And so we need to throttle and censor the right in order to allow for a revolutionary struggle.
Okay. So the left just thinks if you're right, you shouldn't speak. If you're on the right, you are powerful by definition. Well, but we're not. I mean, so that argument totally falls apart.
White males. Because now they've gotten it even more fine, because it's not just the right wing power structure, it's the identity specific power structure. So if you're a white male versus minority females, or if you're a cis or heterosexual versus a transgender, whoever the power group is needs to be shut down and needs to shut up and be throttled. And they
right, but again, if you look out in reality, the people who have all the power are the left.
Of course.
So they have Hollywood, they have the universities, they have the government, they have the deep state part of the government, as well as a lot of the elected part of the government. They have everything.
So do you think they'll change their mind?
They have big tech. No, of course not. I mean, they're in
power.
They're gonna
of course. And this is the thing we need to realize, is that these arguments are just means to ends. These arguments that, as soon as you whack one down, they're going to come up with a new one. And the whole idea is to justify revolution and power and socialism.
And just control. I honestly think there's like the psychological thing going on here, because I interact with people from both sides. Friends of mine on the left, they don't just want you to tolerate homosexuals, say, or let's go even further, like transgenders. They don't want you to just tolerate them. They want you to agree with them. They want you to think it's okay
Or have sex
to
with
be
them.
that way, or okay.
Seriously, that's
We're
what
not
there's
there
a
yet.
movement. There is.
I know there is, but come on. Okay, so the point is that it's not enough that you just, hey, let people live their lives and don't yourself harass anybody or, bully anybody. They actually want you to approve of them. Like there's this approval that they need. And it's like controlling your thinking and your soul. They want control over you. And then you got people on the right. And I think there are people, there are all walks of life on both sides of these ideologies. But the majority of the people I meet on the right, even the religious ones, at this point are just like, leave me the hell alone. I don't really, I want you to tolerate my ideas, and I want to have like church in school, but you can opt out. Like I don't really. I want to have church in school. I want my kids to have church in school, but you don't have. You can opt out. I mean, I don't know how genuine that is. Would an atheist be shunned in some circles? Yes. But I don't know, just psychologically, I would say the majority that I interact with really just they just want to live their damn lives. They just want to be left alone. And, even when I was speaking at tea parties and stuff like that, I've told this story before. I had this one incident where I gave this speech at a tea party, and this was in Minnesota, and this was, oh my God, the Lutherans in Minnesota, right? I mean, everybody in Minnesota is like religious.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, they came up to me after, and they said, this older woman, I'm talking to this group of people, and she sort of is there, and she says, how can you're an atheist, how can you call yourself an American? Like America is a Christian nation, and basically you're no American. And she was angry, like it was. And I said, well, in America, you get to think what you want to think, and I get to think what I want to think, and it doesn't matter. We can still interact, and we can still buy stuff from each other, and right. and do politics. And the crowd around me went, yeah, that's right. Like it was this really weird moment. She was shunned in that moment. She was shunned for saying that to me. And the crowd agreed with me. So yeah, there are people like that woman, but the majority of those people do believe in that American ideal at this point, that live and let live. Mind your own business, as Benjamin Franklin would say. So, so I believe that's the American way. And I think that's part of the American spirit. And I think that is on the right. That's what people think. On the left, they want to control you. They deeply want to control you. And it's almost like this need for personal approval. It's freaking psychological, like deeply psychological.
Yeah.
In my view.
Sort of
so
a
all
need to
this is an
control
excuse.
reality.
Yeah, right. And someone else was saying the other day, people on the left are miserable people. And that's the other thing to know is that I think it was Sarah Hoyt. She's that sci-fi author who also writes from kind of a libertarian conservative perspective. She was saying that they hate themselves, and it's being projected outward. There's just there's damage here, And when you meet people on the right, they're like wholesome, and they're doing stuff, and they have jobs, and they have kids, and they're kind of living these pretty good lives with values and achievements. And when you meet people on the left, a lot of them are just miserable and
related to your
dark.
point about control, this mask hysteria, I think this is a great symbol of what you're talking about. Like, think about this for a second. People that are hysterical about the masks, there's like kind of a pathological desire or need to control not just other people, but the nature of reality. Like viruses can't be controlled at a certain level. They're like little things, you know, we can't completely control virus. And so the idea with people like us would be, well, let's try and control it, but we also have to live our lives and manage the risks. And there's pros and cons, but there's only so much we can do. And we have to live in an uncertain world. And if you trust your own mind and you trust your ability to grasp and deal with reality, you grant that control and that power to other people as well, and you recognize their right to do that. And so we're live and let live, and we'll kind of deal with the world. The left, on the other hand, with this pathological need to control other people and in reality, are almost saying, I could control the virus if only these Trump rubes and these rednecks would wear their mask. We would have no coronavirus. There would be no, if only they would stop wanting to buy guns, if they would only stop doing this, if only we could control them and they would listen and obey, then I could be happy in my own life. So it's always a projection of a need to control in order to satisfy their own insecurity. And so this creates a kind of hysteria, and you can see it physically in these store videos where people are attacking anyone that doesn't wear a mask, where they literally go crazy, like as if that one person, they're responsible for killing them. And that hysteria,
and you can tell the level of emotion that the person is experiencing is intense. It's like it is literally, they see a person and they're relating that to their own vulnerability to this virus. And I've said this before, speaking as someone who is vulnerable, like I am immune suppressed. I'm probably on the worst medication, prednisone, that you could be on to get COVID, because it's a broad spectrum immune suppressant. I take care of myself. I wear an N95 mask inside, wherever I go inside. I am careful. I sanitize things. I take very minimal risks. With the people who live in my household, take minimal risks. So I've had to do that. It's been hard, but it's my responsibility. When I see somebody not wearing a mask, I don't care. I don't feel worried at all, because I have my N95 and I'm keeping my distance or whatever. I mean, whatever I need to do, I take that responsibility. Even if I really felt worried, like if I walked into an elevator and somebody was sneezing or coughing, I would just walk out of the elevator. I would not get in an elevator with someone like that. And that's up to me. Like, I wouldn't get mad and yell at them, hey, put your mask on. What are you doing coming into a doctor's office with a cough? Like, what the hell is your problem? I might think that, like, what are you doing? But I would still take care of myself. And the level of my emotional response would be sort of moderate, because I'm not going to put my life in other people's hands. And the other thing is, regarding, like, when this thing hit, my attitude, I was thinking, oh, we're America. We'll figure this out. Like, we'll come up with solutions and treatments. And, this is going to be a piece of cake. Like, it's going to be tough at first, and then we're going to figure it out. And here we are a year later. And it's like, that's not the focus of the country. The focus of the country has been protection versus treatment or solving the problem.
Solution. Yeah.
It's been just literally, how do I protect how do we hole up and avoid germs?
Well, again, it's the sense of self-responsibility versus believing in a top-down control, where, and this underlies the Trump hostility and the Trump derangement as well, because even though we understand Trump's pathologies and we don't agree with him on everything, we can modulate and moderate our rage or our anger towards the federal government, because ultimately we feel like we're in control of our lives, and here's what I can control, here's what I can't. And ultimately the government only has so much effect on me. Whereas to the leftist who wants to control other people and all of reality, because they think everyone is flawed and is out to get them and needs to be reformed and controlled. and educated, re-educated by the state.
Yeah.
So they need the, you know, if a guy like Trump is in there running things, it blows up their entire metaphysical view of the universe, because now there's no one competent controlling everybody and all the
That's
rubes and
right.
rednecks.
That's
It's all
right.
crazy.
Oh my God, he's too volatile. Who knows what he's gonna say? This is too dangerous. Like, and they're scared. And we're seeing this in the libertarian objectivist community too, where I believe that it is sort of showing this subsection of freedom people who are actually control freaks.
Yes.
And they have that same need to, I want my freedom utopia. I want my free market utopia. And this guy is a disaster. And like, they're just as bad as the left. They're utopians who want to control people. They don't want it to be messy. And life is messy and life is hard and shit happens. And you just have to take care of yourself and get in your community. It's like that easy. I think that the level of Trump derangement syndrome that we see on the right, like the real intense,
Yeah.
just like you were saying, there's this intense hatred and emotion, and they literally can't see or like anything this guy has ever done, or see that he's been under attack from the left. They can't even see that. They can't see election fraud. They can't see it because they're so emotionally upset that, and I've heard those same people be like, oh, I mean, even though Biden couldn't be worse, like it couldn't be freaking worse, or Obama, who was so awful, but he had this calmness and this, he accepted the forms, he accepted civility. Joe Biden probably will somewhat too. Of course, they'll let him get away with saying things like Tea Parties are terrorists,
Right.
which is what he said in 2011.
Yeah.
That's not civil. That is creating division. I don't think anybody was more divisive than Obama and the Obama administration. And they set us up for what is happening right now. So, and yet, because they did it in a more silver-tongued or slicker, or, Trump is just like a bull in a china closet. So yeah, you and I see his flaws, but that's a really good point. We aren't destroyed by it. We aren't emotionally wrecked to the point that we can't think, because ultimately we don't think he's really that powerful.
Right. Because when you think, like, look around you in your room, and if you start inductively and say, look at my life, look at where I am, look at what's going on, and then you integrate that with the possibilities of what the federal government could do or whatever, and you have a certain amount of concern, a certain amount of rage, and a certain amount of, well, what can I do? And here's what I can do. But you're starting from the ground up. The top-down thinker starts with not their own life and what they can control and they can't control. They start with a utopian vision or ideal, whether that's right wing or left wing. And they say, how am I the only way I can survive and live is to have my ideal and my utopia. And if someone's not perfect in implementing that utopia, whether you're from the right and you want the free market utopia and Trump is flawed, so he's going to ruin my life, or you're from the left and Trump is too right wing, so he's going to ruin your leftist socialism utopia, you're starting top down and you're saying, this guy's flawed. He can't get me to the utopia and I can't live. I'm now paralyzed and I'm outraged because he's not doing what I need to do to live. And you and I are sitting there, and most people on the right are like, just leave me alone. I just want to go to work. I have kids. I got shit to do. I mean,
I got shit to do. That should be our House of Sunny t-shirt. I've got shit to do, man. What the hell is going on? Man, I got shit to do. I can't believe I have to get sucked into this shit. All right. Yeah, really, really well said. Okay. So let's get into predictions, because I see the writing on the. Do we want to sum up real quick? So they have this thing where they are intolerant of ideas. They're not free speech absolutists, but ultimately they just want to control you, and they're against anything on the right because it's going to not get them to their beautiful utopia. On the right, there is actually a time for violence. Are we there? I think that we're going to be going into some dark times here. And I think that my other t-shirt would be don't be stupid. Like there is no reason to
Good advice.
I'm not a coward, but I'm going to say this and then I'm going to explain. There's no reason to stick your freaking neck out. Don't give the criminal the keys to your house. Right? I mean, don't invade the Capitol and give them these. I mean, to a certain extent, it's satisfying for me to see people with courage. But what I'm saying is, let's not do that until we know we win, or to a certain degree. I'm not saying, don't take risks, because I'm not a pussy like that. Obviously, the founding fathers took a huge risk, and nobody knew if they'd win. But they weren't marching up to a British soldier and going, listen, the king sucks and I'm going to, chop off his head and like.
Yeah.
Right. I mean.
And you don't take like 20 guys with muskets and fight a British armada in the field. I mean, you have to maybe fight a guerrilla war first, and you have to retreat a little bit and take some pot shots and be tactical.
That's right. So don't be stupid. Like Washington retreated from New York. He didn't go, hey, how about let's just keep going till we're all slaughtered. And then I'm sure it'll be fine. Right? I mean, you guys, it's time to be freaking smart.
Go out with a bang.
Right. I feel like the next 4 years are going to be very hard. We're going to lose a lot of freedom. And we, patriots, are going to have to get smart. We're going to have to retreat a little. We're going to have to hunker down and prepare. And hopefully we'll get some new leaders. I don't think Trump is the right leader for us. I think Steve Deace said this on Twitter this morning. I completely agree with this. And you and I have said this. The best thing about Trump is that he pulled the curtain back.
Yep.
We know who's who, what's going on. And you and I maybe knew that before, but 70 million people know that now. That was a really important first step. However, it's exposed us. It's exposed them. They're running scared now, and they're dangerous. They're a, it's like a animal that's frightened. It's dangerous. So that's where we're headed. So predictions. Patriot Act 2, right? You heard about this?
Mm-hmm.
They are going to call our speech incitement and insurrection. They're already doing it. I mean, it's not they're going to. They are doing it, but it's going to be legalized. And the FBI is going to, the corrupt FBI, and don't go, oh, it's just some bad apples. When you have people in charge of the FBI that are consistently bad, you're looking at the leadership and going, wow, the leaders are all pretty bad, corrupt people.
I'm sure the Gestapo had some pretty good people too. Good people, some bad apples though.
Some good, right. I'm sure some of the lowly Gestapo really just cared about their country and just
Rank
doing
and
their
file,
job.
Gestapo, they were fine.
Yeah. I mean, what we know is that stuff rolls downhill. Anybody who would stand up to that or be actually good has been purged.
Yep.
We know that. Like, has anybody here worked for any place? You don't survive in an environment like that unless you are just a lackey. You're just willing to go along. So it's totally corrupt. And they're going to use this designation of you as a domestic terrorist to take away your gun rights, to take away your free speech, and and whatever they can get away with. So the other thing that's kind of interesting is they're already starting to merge into, this is, if you said that thing where people write down who they want to be the leader and like the FRAUD around that. I'm not sure what I can say and what I can't say.
Totally legitimate. You
That
mean the
thing
totally
that happened in
legitimate
November?
process that took place to
The totally
inaugurate our dear leader?
Yes.
Totally
That thing.
legitimate process. Yes.
Uh,
I remember
if
that.
you
That was so
think,
legitimate.
if you think that that was legitimate, you're not a domestic terrorist. Now take the opposite of that.
I can't
So
even imagine what the opposite of that would be.
good. Now you're getting it done.
I'm not even thinking of the opposite of that.
We
I
wouldn't
don't want
want
to
you
be
to commit.
pre-censored.
I was just going to say, we wouldn't want you to have any pre-crime going on there in that head.
Sorry.
I might need drugs in order to make that a reality. I might need some good, I'm glad pot is legal. That might be part of why they've done that.
Yeah, they're smart.
So that is already being called insurrection talk. But now I'm seeing it kind of move into racism should be banned, like the attitude of racism.
Yeah.
And the other thing they've been saying for years is that all whites are racist. So where's that going to lead? If you don't see literal white genocide coming, you're a fucking idiot. That is not a conspiracy theory. I'm sorry for the F word, but you are literally a moron. You are the stupid people who, like, when you hear AOC say this stuff and then you go, well, it's just AOC. She's a freaking congresswoman. And there are others who repeat what she said. And there are people in the media, high up in mainstream media, talking about lists and camps. This is not a joke, dude. This is happening in America. It is being called for by people in power that anyone on the right literally goes to a re-education camp. Robert Reich, AOC, tons of people. I mean, I could compile a list. We've seen this on a former Facebook executive said this on CNN the other day. Everybody's talking about what are we going to do about these the Trumpists? What are we going to do about the 70 million people? We have to. How do we re-educate them? And part of it is shut up, silence you. If you think the election was anything other than totally legitimate, because it was, you you should be silenced. And especially if you're racist, you should be silenced. And if you're white, you're automatically racist. So that's coming. These are logical conclusions.
Yeah.
They want to throw Ted Cruz.
Racist.
Right. Hello.
Do the syllogism.
Please do it, everybody out there. I mean, this isn't brain surgery. I feel like I'm making stupid predictions like that morons could be able to make. But I can see that people think, oh, silly. And I'm like, I feel like I'm in Germany before the Jews were slaughtered, going, maybe we shouldn't be okay with these people in authority saying all the Jews are responsible for everything that's happening here. And maybe they should be allowed in schools and maybe they should be allowed to have businesses.
Yeah, IG Farben is a private company, so.
Right.
Cyclone B, that's just they're a private company.
Right. It's a private company, so it's fine. I'm sure they said that in Nazi Germany before they killed 6 million Jews. So, everybody, we are watching it. It is not a joke. And it doesn't have to happen. It's not inevitable. It will be inevitable if you sit around going, oh, it's just AOC. There's going to be a momentum and an inertia because nobody's standing in the way. And then there will be 5 AOCs. There already are 5 AOCs in Congress. This Corey person who's just insane, the shit that she says. But you had Maxine Waters calling for harassment of anyone who works for Trump or anyone who supports Trump. That's fine. That's not incitement, even though Sarah Huckabee got kicked out of a restaurant with her family that week. Yeah. That wasn't incitement. But Trump can't hold a rally of supporters with different political opinions.
Remember, the right, if you commit violence against the right, it's a form of justice.
Yeah. So that's where we're headed. Honestly, people, you have got to take this seriously. this is coming. Patriot Act 2 is coming. So be very careful what you do online. Be very careful what you do. Do not give them the keys to your house. Okay. And I may go through my stuff and purge, take down some stuff, make a bunch of videos private. Maybe if I don't take down my old comedy videos, I might make most of them private. I'm not going to give them the keys to my house. It doesn't mean I'm going anywhere. I'm not going to be stupid. And I might make stuff in the future. Part of my problem is I'm not able to be 100% in this fight. I'm just able to sort of dip my toe in it with this podcast. And it's not enough. I can't do enough of this to protect myself, to get big enough to be protected. And so I'm nervous about it, to be honest. And I also don't really know how much good I'm doing with my little podcast. I do believe that one man can do a lot. So I believe that we all need to do our part. But maybe my part is
I'm running for president.
Yeah, I'll vote for you.
2024.
2024. You'll make it, man.
I can do
You're
it.
an optimist. You can do it. How about
Send
city
me money.
council?
What? What kind of what? How dare you?
I mean, I believe in stretch goals, but
Boy, this is with friends like these.
so do you have any predictions besides what I said?
Predictions? Yeah, I think that what we might have is can I tell you what I think we should do or what I think is gonna happen?
No, these are just predictions. What are they going to
Okay.
do? What are we going to be facing? And then we'll get into our retreat and what we need to do the next 4 years.
Okay. Well, I think they'll overreach. I think that they're going to go too far with something. You know, I've seen the list of Biden's executive orders that he just unleashed today, his 17 or 20 executive orders or whatever. They're kind of what I expected. They're going to, I think, immigration. They're recognizing how powerful immigration is to maintaining their political control. So you're going to see a lot of amnesties. They're allowing non-citizens to be counted in the census, things like that. So you're going to see a lot of efforts on their part to enable.
Do you know what's great about that? We'll finally know how many freaking illegals are in California. I honestly think there's 10 million illegals in this state, and we don't know. But, you know, California has this 40 million population, 40 million. I think it's 50. I think that's why we have so much traffic. I think there's way more people here than we know.
But I think they'll overreach on gun control.
Yeah.
And
Well, that would be a real trigger. I mean, that would cause an immediate civil war if they did that.
Yeah, I think they're going to provide some catalysts for action. Like you said, I don't think it's hard for me not to go right into what we should do. I kind of think they'll be somewhat neutered.
If you want to go into what we should do, I'll just start.
Well, let me just say this too. Maybe I'm just coping, but I kind of don't think it's going to be as bad as a lot of people imagine. And the reason is throughout my life, which is going on a lot longer than I expected, actually. Throughout my life and observing politics, one thing I've always noticed around these elections is there's always a certain amount of hysteria, and the one side, whether you support that side or you oppose that side, they never really are able to do more than about 5 to 10% of what you think they can do.
Yeah.
Because our system is designed, for better or for worse, to stop people from doing things. And we still have those mechanisms in place. Now, are they going to do extra legal things to try and make these things happen? Yeah, but you know, there's still a Senate and a Congress, there's still a court system. And I think there's going to be some bad stuff, no doubt, but I don't think it's going to be quite as bad.
There's also still an establishment that fundamentally wants the status quo. I mean, they want power, but they also want status quo. I've been thinking that they might actually take Antifa down. That might actually happen because I'm seeing Antifa get super aggressive, and they're putting up these signs for not even rallies or protests. There's like pictures of people throwing bombs for today, and we'll see what happens. But I'm like, why are they allowing them to do that?
Because now
And
Antifa is going to be
think-
threatening them and threatening their power.
That's what I'm saying. And so I think they're actually pushing it so that something awful can happen, and then they can justify cracking down on Antifa, whom they've defended the past 4 years. So I think they're actually going to push Antifa into making some big mistake.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they're fundamentally, especially the globalists, are motivated by money and by power, and they keep money and power, and they keep they
don't want some
money
rogue army
flowing.
out there.
Right. That's not what gets them children to have sex with, and objects of pagan sacrifices, and prostitutes, and going to Hollywood parties and stuff. All the stuff they really want to do. Like they don't want a socialist or communist utopia. I think they just want control and power. And if you threaten their power, that's when they come after you. They're not true believers. There's a few true believers. I think you got to watch them, like the AOCs and stuff of the world are true believers. I think she really wants a socialist revolution. But if you've really paid attention, the power structure within the Democratic circles has shut her up. And I think they're trying to put her on a leash.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that. I don't think that I do think that things are lurching in her direction.
Yeah.
But you're right. There is a certain slowness to it. There's an establishment, a money, power hungry establishment that will stand in the way of anything getting too crazy. And we might even see some improvements in that way because things have gotten kind of crazy. So I want to share this with you. I don't know why you made me think of this, but Lady Gaga posted this, and so can you see this? Okay.
Yeah.
This is the picture she posted. See this thing here? I pray tomorrow will be a day of peace for all Americans, a day for love, not hatred, a day for acceptance, not fear, a day for dreaming of our future joy as a country, a dream that is nonviolent, that provides safety for our souls, love from the Capitol. Okay, this is the, resist movement. And look at her. And I'm just
Now she's all in.
She looks like a freaking nun.
Wow.
Look at that.
Oh my God.
Do you know why I thought of this? I thought of this because you mentioned the pedophilia and the sacrifices and stuff, and she's sort of knee deep in all that. And then I think my favorite reply to this was Bridget Feisty, that comedian who's like trying to be on the fence between left and right, which is hilarious. She wrote, "Blessed be thy name." which is that it's a reference to that show where the ladies are in red with the white hats, and they they're living in this religious totalitarian.
Handmaid's Tale.
Handmaid's Tale, right? I mean, it really is like that.
Well, she's got her American burqa
thing you ever saw.
I call masks the American burqa.
Look at her.
What a freak.
What a total fucking freak.
Wow.
So, all right. So those are our predictions. Now, one thing I'm seeing a lot of people saying, I find this kind of strange, but I kind of agree with it. People on our side are saying after this defeat, get healthy, get in shape.
What?
Isn't that kind of a weird thing? Like lift weights, exercise, eat right. That's what they're saying. Get healthy.
Oh, I thought it was metaphorical.
No, they mean it.
Literal?
Literally, be healthy, get in shape. Our side needs to get healthy. Isn't that weird?
Who's saying
I kind of agree with it, though. I think we need to be strong. And that involves eat right, exercise, get independent, get independent of the system.
Yeah.
And I think that partly is being healthy, and it's prepping a little bit. And last week we had on Rob Wolf, who is a paleo guru, but also he's kind of, I mean, he leans right. He's sort of a libertarian, and he hides his political views because he doesn't want to alienate. He's a nutrition guy. He doesn't want to alienate everybody, but he can't help himself because he's outspoken. So if you follow him anywhere, he's often just kind of coming out like, and especially now that food is becoming so political, he's getting more political. And I asked him about prepping, like, how do you prep for paleo? And I will cut that clip out. I'm gonna make that into a clip and put that out because I found that kind of interesting. Anyway, prep, get independent, get healthy. That's being said, I agree with that. Just psychologically, we need to be strong and we need the dopamine. Right.
I like that.
And then if we do have to like flee or whatever, like you need to not be sick. I need to not be sick. I gotta work on it. I am working on it.
I thought this was a veiled swipe at my at me and other people who are just a couple pounds overweight.
I would never fat shame anybody. I love fat people.
Interesting.
Did you know, side note,
That's sexy.
all of these people who were part of the body positive movement, that's what they call it, which is really just, I'm really fat and you need to like acknowledge. This is again the left saying, this is the left forcing you to approve of them. Like, I am morbidly obese and I want you need to approve of that.
Yeah.
And like Lizzo, that really gross fat singer rapper. I mean, there's no question she's talented, but she's freaking morbidly obese. She needs to get healthy. She's gonna die from that. Okay. But Doug, I'm not overweight. Who between you and me is more healthy?
Me? What?
You are way more healthy than me. So
Yeah,
it's not all about pounds.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is
pound for pound, I'm healthier than you.
Each one of your little pounds
pound
is healthier than my pounds. If we look at them on the microscopic level.
That's right. Well, so we got to get healthy. I agree with that. Good.
Yeah.
What else?
Okay. That's step one. Prep and independence from the system as much as you can. I mean, don't go crazy. Don't be crazy. But think about that, Don't give them any way to control you is the thing. Don't give them more than they already have to hold things over your head. We're the people with values. They can hold those over our head. And that's partly why we lose, to be honest. We have more to lose. We have a lot more to lose.
That's right. That's why we don't do anything.
Right. So because we are the people who value things, that puts us actually at a disadvantage until we decide to risk it.
That's right.
And when the founders said our sacred honor, our fortunes, that was a moment, like a Rubicon moment for them. I think prior to that, they do everything they can to save the system, to not be in conflict, because they're the ones who own property. They have the wealth. They have families that they love. And all that is put at risk when you go to war. So that's how they're able to keep pushing at us and poking at us.
Yeah.
Until we can't.
They're losers. They have nothing to live for.
They have nothing to live for.
Politics.
Right. We do. So
they're fueled by
one thing
their
you can do
idealism.
Is gain as much independence from them as you can. So they have less to hold over you. Protect your family, protect your property. However you can. You're smart. We're smart. Let's do it. Okay. Go local. Especially right now, you guys, the schools. Because equity is going across this country like wildfire and being pushed into every school in this country, including elementary schools. And equity means anti-white racism. And every single one of us needs to show the F up and fight that. Like my kid, I don't put my kid in public school. I'm a product of public school. She's not in public schools. My mission this year is to get freaking involved in the local school shit. And I'm going to come up with a way to battle this locally. I'm going to come up with a strategy. I'm going to get other parents together who are like-minded, and we're going to go in as a group, and I'm going to come up with the arguments, the shattering arguments against these things, and we're going to do it. I feel like that's something I can do. And I think I'll share that with you. I'll share what I'm doing with everybody, and maybe people can use my method, because what I'm seeing a lot of, and what we see a lot of on the right, is look what they're doing. It's awful. It's awful. Look what they're doing. That's great. Like, we need the exposure, but what we fail at over and over is now what?
Now what? Yeah.
The hell do we do? Okay, we know. I've seen a million data points now that they are pushing anti-white, like literally white hate on your little freaking 6-year-old. And they've already done that with environmentalism. That's saturated. And they're also pushing sexualization on young kids.
Totally.
So we need to put a stop to this shit. And we have control locally. Get the Patriots, the Patriots together in your neighborhood. Find them on Nextdoor. Be bold. Find them on Facebook, whatever. If you're in groups or whatever, go, hey, are there any people here? Let's go meet in the park and talk about this. I want to talk about equity in the schools. Who's with me? Who wants to do something? Which park did you
say we're meeting at? Sending this to the FBI.
Right. Look out for infiltrators. And then right before you leave the park, burn somebody in effigy. I think that would be a good.
Or burn down a Target, or something.
Right. That's allowed now. That's just political protest.
That's right. Well, for some.
But seriously, and maybe locally. It's not school boards. Maybe it's a city council. Maybe it's what you need, Patriots, Patriots, is friends. You need your neighbors. You need to find, I'm looking out my window right now. I have an American flag flying. And in California, that means I'm on the right. Everybody knows it. There's a house right across the street with a flagpole. I just have mine like off the side of my house. They have a pole in their front yard. They are flying it proudly this morning. I know who my people are. So go find those people, meet in the park, and say, all right, we lost. Let's retreat. Let's hunker down. What are we going to do locally? Let's take donuts to our cops. We need to get to know our cops and our policemen. We need to get to know them. And they need to know that we expect them to protect us. And we need to get to know our city council and our mayor, and we need to raise money for them, and we need to be the ones with influence, and we need to meet the school board, and we need to go march into those schools and go, no, you are not going to teach white racism, racist anti-white propaganda to my kids. This ends now. We have to do that, you guys. I mean, I know that sounds like a long-term strategy, but that to me is the most serious thing going on right now, is the propaganda, the 1619 Project bullshit and the equity stuff being pushed nationally. And it is like wildfire. Your school has it. I live in Laguna Beach. I live in a predominantly white upper class area, Laguna Beach, right? They just passed equity here, the school board. They just said that's going to be part of the curriculum, the 1619 Project and equity. So I'm going to walk in and put a stop to it. And I need to have 20 neighbors with me. I can't do that myself. If I walk in there and I give my cute speeches and I say all the right things, it will not matter. You need to have your own little mob, and you need to start going around to these things and taking control. With money and with numbers. Every neighborhood has a group. Every neighborhood has people. I'm saying there are people in your neighborhood that you can band together with. Every single neighborhood has that. So find those people, band together, and make change. Now let's hope the left are the ones who will be lazy and let it happen because they're not showing up. They think they've got this in the bag. Take donuts to your cops. And then here's my last to do, and then I want to hear what you think. Infiltrate the GOP. Take your mob and infiltrate the GOP. Oh, we just want to help. We just want to, that's where you go in stealth. Do not tell those people who you are. Infiltrate the GOP, but know who your friends are. Know who the patriots are. Do not start a new political party. What do you think about that, Doug?
Yeah, I think it's stupid. I think it's another form of conservative retreat. We always want to run and hide and try and start something new
retreat
instead of fighting. And
yeah,
look what the Democrats did with the Justice Democrats with
that should be our
AOC.
strategy.
They
said
were
this
able
before.
to primary 4 or 5 congressmen that were in primariable districts, and they got rid of the milquetoast middle of the roaders, and they got hardcore leftists in there. We've got to do the same on our side.
That's right. We need to be we've said this a million times. We need to be the Justice Republicans.
Like, I have a very hardcore Republican district, and the guy that runs, I never hear him, never hear anything. He was denouncing the Capitol stuff, and he's a total milquetoast guy. And I'm seriously in a position where I could go there and maybe do something about it. I don't know.
Right.
But absolutely.
So if you're going to put your money politically, stop sending it to these national people.
Guys.
Like, you need to find real fighters. Yeah. I would kill to be in McConnell's district. Like, that would be, I would take such pleasure in taking that guy down. State. But I don't know. He's probably too powerful. He probably rigs all the elections.
Yeah, they're hard to get rid of. I mean, but we have to realize who, the Rhino Republicans are not our friends. There's a Demopublican. 95% of the distribution of Democrats and Republicans are all like the same thing. They're the 5% fringes. Like, there's some Rand Pauls and AOCs who are sort of fringe players, and they're the ones though who really make. They're the ones who drive the party, right? AOC and her 3 or 4 buddies.
That's the thing.
Taken over the party.
AOC went in there her first day. She staged a sit-in in Nancy Pelosi's hallway.
Yeah, that was a statement.
She didn't go there to make friends, you guys. She did not go there and go, oh, I really hope if I get this politician to like me, then I can make a change.
Mm-hmm.
No, these politicians are corrupt. They are losers and they're evil. And that goes for the GOP. We need to slide in there, and we need to be the stealth ones, and we need to I don't believe any of them. Like, if they, oh yeah, I totally agree with you. Oh yeah, I'm a patriot. Oh, Trump. Oh, blah, blah. Like, don't even have these conversations with these people. Go in and tell them how it's going to be and how you expect them to vote with your money or whatever. And go in with your mob of 20 neighbors. Get the same T-shirt made that says whatever it is you want it to say. Whatever it is, like AOC, she's in the hallway outside Nancy Pelosi's office with a pack of young people, and they have all the same T-shirt on saying Green New Deal.
Mm-hmm.
So you figure out what it is you want, put it on a T-shirt, dress the same, show up with your mob, tell these GOPers how it's going to be. But then also, I think some of it is like stealth. Like AOC, she has a job. Nancy Pelosi has to deal with her because she has the job, Can
I tell you my
big idea? She's not just nobody. Yeah. No, you didn't. Tell us.
Okay. So I sent a letter to a local state representative.
Oh, yeah,
and I got a little bit of feedback on this. I think they're interested. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere, but I'm going to push it. So in the spirit of the founding fathers formed 3 extra legal congresses. The Albany Congress initially is what brought the colonists together. And then the Stamp Act Congress, and then the Continental Congress in 1774. And the idea was to get a national Congress together. It was extra legal. There was nothing official about it. And they defined ways to, and devised ways to protest monarchy, and figured out what they were going to do. And my big idea is to get sort of like a Congress of red states, maybe red counties throughout the
Yeah.
country in a
Ooh,
national
counties would be
Congress, red county national Congress, where we go somewhere, I don't know, South Dakota, Alabama, wherever, and we get mayors and state reps and governor, whoever wants to come, who's an official, and they get together, and we're going to define resolutions and demands to stop, the 5 or 10 things that we think are most important right now. And you and I could probably tell everyone what I think it is, but this would be a statement. It's a statement to the federal government that there's a groundswell of local people that are not going to put up with a two-tiered system or the imposition of one party rule by the left, with respect to gun rights, election integrity, the masks and the COVID lockdowns, free speech, the ability to defend yourself, like the Kyle Rittenhouse, the demand that officials protect law-abiding citizens and their businesses from rioting and looting, and to protect people's right to defend themselves from that, and so on and so forth. And so the idea would be to sort of a statement that, hey, there's millions and millions of people out here, and we're not going to put up with this. And I think if you got enough people together to do this, it would be probably attract a lot of attention and a lot of concern on the other side's part, which they should be concerned.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
this
that's part
would
of that
also
show
set this,
numbers where you can intimidate them and make them concerned and make them think, well, we can't really get away with that, so let's not do it.
because at some point we're going to have to separate ourselves to some extent from the federal government. I don't know that the federal government can ever be reined in at this point. They're too big. There's too much money. So we've got to
Yeah.
find ways to
Well,
gum
and
up the works.
that's why we have to go local too, because I do believe that at the end of the day, it's going to come up to making local stands against the
Local.
federal government and
Sanctuary cities,
saying, yeah, we're not
sanctuary
going to do
states.
that. And if enough localities are able to do that, then they can't really fight it. If
Well,
one little locality pops up and goes, like if Texas goes, we're seceding, the federal government will just go crush them.
Yeah.
If 35 states go, no, we're not going to put up with mandatory masks, what's the government going to do? They can't stop that. They can't go after 35 states. So it's really, really important that you get involved locally. I do think there are a lot of us out there. I think there are actually a lot of Democrats that are now on our side because they are seeing that what the current Democrats represent everything that they were ever against, like the totalitarianism, the anti-free speech, the censorship, the cancel culture, the inequality under the law. All of these things used to be liberal, quote unquote, liberal values. Of course, there was always that underground of postmodernism on the left that in the last,
it wasn't really, it was just a means
60
to an
years.
end. Yeah.
Right. It was just them. They were lying. So, but I think
Sonny,
there's a rank and file though, that wasn't like, they believed that they were part of the party that actually cared about the individual and cared about life and,
Yeah.
And those people are now they've moved right because of how totalitarian the left has gotten. So how overt and how exposed the left has become recently. So I think you have neighbors and you need to band together and go
Let's
local.
learn from the left too. Learn from
up.
the left. What did the left do? They immediately got things into friendly court jurisdictions. And remember when Trump tried some of the bans and things like that on Muslim immigration?
Right.
First thing they did was they went to the Ninth Circuit and they got a national injunction against everything he did.
Right.
Lawsuits. They held up everything they could. They used the court system.
Are you advocating some sort of hashtag resistance right now? Is that what?
Yes.
Sounds
hashtag
dangerously
resistance.
like insurrection.
No, I have a pussy wig on, or whatever what are the pussy hats?
We need our own pussy hats.
Maybe a
blue?
balls hat. Have a hat with like a big dick and some balls on it.
Our dick hat?
A dick hat. Big balls hat.
Dude, I will find someone to crochet that, and we'll send out the crochet pattern to all the wives of the Patriots. Dick and balls. Oh, that's terrible. We could do like a little, to be realistic, we could have something like that was like a little tri-corner or something.
Totally, man.
A little Patriot tri-corner crocheted hat. We'll call it the dick hat.
Don't tread on me. So no, but I'm serious. You got to learn from how the left did it. I mean, they were in Trump's first term. They did not have the Supreme Court. The Republicans controlled the Supreme Court in both houses of Congress and the presidency. And what did Trump do? Nothing. He did nothing. They investigated him. We had 2 years of Russia collusion.
He got nothing done.
We were constantly reacting to their craziness and their nonsense.
But a big part of that was McConnell too, and and what was his name? Paul Ryan.
Yeah.
Just the corruption in Congress. I mean, where's our Obamacare repeal that they kept promising us? And then as soon as they had a supermajority, they're like, oh, well,
Well, let's use the next 2 years to do what they did, which is to gum up the system with lawsuits and resistance. And then in 2 years, let's get good people in. Let's primary some of these clowns.
You have to find the districts where someone bold can win. Like AOC picked her district quite cleverly. And it wasn't AOC. She had people behind her helping her do this. But she was able to primary an establishment fat white dude in a mostly Latino Latinx neighborhood area.
Latino.
It's Latinx now, or Latinx.
No, Nicaragua. You got to say it with a real Latinx.
I can't. Okay.
Latino.
That's not good either.
Sorry.
So do you have any more advice besides what we've said? I think we got to wrap up our show.
I think we got it all. I think there's the local, absolutely local, and then learn from the left and start thinking about ways to screw this up.
#resistance. Mm-hmm. And we'll make some t-shirts. What was our t-shirt again?
Don't be stupid. Or no, I got shit to do.
I got shit to do.
Wear your dick and balls hat with I got shit to do t-shirt.
Let's get who out there among my fan base can crochet and can make a tri-corner hat, dick and balls hat. All right. Hey, everybody, thanks for joining us. It was a good discussion today. That was good. I guess, I don't know. I don't even know where to tell you to follow me because everything is changing. The dust is not settled. I'm on Parler. I'm on Mayway. I'm on Telegram. Telegram House of Sunny. Go to my Facebook page, Sunny Lohman. And I've been posting my links to my other social media on there, and I'll keep doing that. I also have just created a link tree. And I think that's it's like a one link where you can put all your links. I'm going to have that out in the next couple of days too.
I'm on MeWe and Telegram now. I have a Telegram channel and a MeWe Rational Capitalist page. I'm moving out of Facebook.
Yeah, I'm moving out there too. I mean, it's dumb. I've been shadow banned there for so long anyway, and nobody sees what I post. So
yeah, it's a waste of time.
I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Parler. I'm on Mayway. I'm on Telegram. I'm on Gab. I'm freaking everywhere, but I don't post everywhere. I'm on Minds. I am going to start putting the podcast and video stuff on BitChute every single week.
Good.
I did it last week. It's up.
Awesome.
And I'm probably going to get a Rumble account too and do it there. I just you got to diversify right now because who knows where people will land. But it's kind of sad to me. I spent a lot of effort building up my fan base. And then in 2016, I saw, or even earlier than that, when they started shadow banning conservatives in 2015, I stopped growing. I just dead stopped growing. And however, I still have this fan base. I would love to move them somewhere. All of you who listen to the show, love to keep you around. But I don't even know, whatever.
Maybe the chart of your social media growth was the inverse image of Biden's vote totals on election night.
That's right.
Your thing went.
It literally, yeah, it was weird. It was weird. I know that it's some kind of electronic thing because
Of course, it's an algorithm.
really abruptly changed, and I haven't grown a single subscriber since 2015. How is that even possible? And I'm doing a weekly podcast. Like, it's impossible.
Yeah.
According to the old way. All right, everybody. So anyway, just keep tuned in, keep posted. If you follow me on Facebook, I will continue to post like where to find me and stuff, and Twitter and all those places. And you can find Doug on Rational Capitalist. And we care about you. We love you. We want unity, everybody. Peace.
Peace. What is it? Blessed be thy name.
Blessed be thy name, and have a good week. We'll see you next week.
Called the House of Sunny. It's filled with satire and fun. It's been the demise of bad ideas, and we'll know what's right when she's done. So download this free podcast now and give perspectives you may lack. It's concise and right and achieves world peace, guaranteed or your money back. Last time, ready?